Hello guys, welcome to another tips and tricks or training video. This time we're doing really advanced professional training here. We are using the new training rooms to do target testing and ammunition testing. And we're doing this in Legendary Tier, and we're using the Kleber for this task. So the first thing is what we're going to test out here is the penetration and citadel capabilities of the AP ammunition. You have 130 millimeter here, which is, let's say, medium caliber. The Americans have 110, 120, so they pen less. And the Germans, let's say tier 7, they have up to 150, but 130 and 139 are the medium to bigger calibers. And we're starting off, so I set up a room with all the cruisers available in Legendary Tier. And I start from 4.5 kilometer and closing in and see where do I get citadels at what distance. Because usually if you're in a knife fight with a cruiser, you must not be afraid. You can citadel most of them, but not all of them, as you can see here. So the first learning is you cannot at all citadel the Alaska. So never ever try that. I tried everything, every distance here. So you see we are already at 2.4 kilometer. There is nothing we can do here to citadel the Alaska with 130 millimeter of the French AP. We're trying different aim points, we're trying different distances and so on. So you can only rack up some damage by shooting the structure, but the AP doesn't citadel the Alaska. It's different from most of the other legendary cruisers. But Alaska and I think it's the Italian Napoli. Those are the only two you have to remember you cannot citadel. So don't make the mistake and rush them just because you think you can hit the reload booster and citadel them. Unlike, for example, the Minotaur, the Worcester, and the Des Moines, those all can be citadeled very easily, which you can see in this video now. I have them all lined up here, and you can see what it takes and how quickly you can bring them down. So they are totally worth a rush with guns, while the Alaska, if you rush the Alaska, you have to have torpedoes to sink her. It's impossible. You would have been dead already during that time. We're doing all that testing, and you see we are already point blank, 0.9 kilometer. There's no way we can citadel this thing. So forget about this. So we're moving on to the Minotaur, and now watch what happens. We're waiting for our 4 guns to reload, and bang, 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 6 citadels. Minotaur is a floating citadel, and with every bullet you get a citadel. So if you're broadside to a Minotaur, you hit the reload booster, 10 seconds later it's gone. You don't need the torpedoes. So Minotaur is really, really easy to kill with AP. Same goes for Des Moines. We are at 3 kilometer or 2.5 kilometer distance, so this is pretty close already. So as you can see, we're getting 10 citadels and 2 salvos. So again, with the reload booster here, you see how quickly we rack up the damage. Of course, the Des Moines in real life would shoot back as well. So probably we would lose a lot of HP, and but this is a winnable fight against the Des Moines and Minotaur. Personally, I've sunk a lot of these ships by closing in and citadeling them. So the rule of thumbs for getting citadels against the Des Moines and the Minotaur is if you are below 3.5 kilometer, then you have a very high likelihood to get citadels, while the Alaska is not citadelable. That's the lesson of this first part of the video. Let's move on to the Colbert and some other ships. So we're starting off at 4.5 kilometer distance, and you see we already get the first citadels. So as a rule of thumb, 4.5 and less, you can start shooting broadside cruisers, except the Napoli and the Alaska, and you should be getting a couple of citadels, but you get 100% guaranteed citadels if you're 3 kilometer and lower. So if you plan an ambush, try to stay below 3 kilometer or even 2 kilometer, and then you can hit the reload booster, and yeah, you can see 4 citadels. And yeah, the citadel is all along the middle, just above the waterline. You can see I'm going forward, I'm going backward. So it's usually from the first or second turret in the front to the first or second in the back, and that's the citadel. You see the Des Moines is easy to citadel, and a little bit forward. Depends on the accuracy, of course. If you have a bad accuracy and grouping of the shells, then you get more citadels or less citadels. But yeah, Des Moines is quite good. You see that aiming was too high, so we need to aim the waterline, and then you have a good probability to get a couple of citadels. Des Moines is a little bit better armored than the Minotaur, but with the reload booster still a doable thing, and usually these ships have some previous damage from some other battles, so usually you're not engaging with guns a full health Des Moines, you usually engage a somewhat diminished Des Moines. And then we move on to the Yoshino, the Japanese cruiser, and yeah, it has a little bit better armor, similar to Des Moines. You can citadel it from, let's say, under 3.5 kilometers, but not too far away, so you need to be a little bit closer to get a better penetration. Let's say the ranking is Minotaur is the easiest to citadel, then it goes Des Moines and Yoshino and the Colbert, and then then we probably take the Kronstadt and the Strasbourg, or what's that? I think what's the cruiser? I think it's Kronstadt, and then we have the Alaska, which is not citadelable at all. So again, you see we are 2.5 kilometers. So Yoshino, you need to be a little closer. That's why I said, as a rule of thumb, if you want to be sure to get citadels, most of the cruisers within 2.5, 3 kilometers, you can get a lot of citadels. Between 3 and 4 kilometers with the French 130 millimeters, you get a couple of citadels. With the Americans, you have to be point blank to get citadels for most of the cruisers, because 120 millimeter doesn't pen as well as the French 130. And should you go lower tier, you go to the German 150. They're very nice to citadel, but they lack the reload, so that's why you get the citadels, but not as many. So the Stalingrad was the ship I was mentioning earlier. Stalingrad has something something special. I found in this shooting, you can see I was pointing center and barely get a citadel. The Stalingrad citadel is pretty much forward in the forward half of the ship. So you need to aim at the first 2 turrets up to the middle. So this is probably the back end of the citadel. But if you want to be sure to hit the citadel, you hit the first half of the ship under the second turret or the first turret. So the citadel is pretty much forward, and you can see I get 4 citadels here. So this is pretty constant to get citadels in this spot. Whereas if you move further back, the citadel is better protected, or I don't know what, but here it's much more consistent to get citadels. So whenever you run into a Stalingrad, aim to the front side of the ship and not to the center or back like with the other ships. You can see it's very consistent to get citadels here. Moving on to the Napoli, the Italian cruiser. Napoli is like Alaska. You cannot get citadels here. It's really, really difficult. We are under 4 kilometers. We don't get any citadels here. We're trying different spots. We're closing in. So we are almost 3.5 kilometers, and no citadels, no citadels, no citadels. So remember, Alaska and Napoli, no citadels with AP. Just use HE if you see these ships and burn them down. Don't waste your time. With Stalingrad, aim to the front part of the citadel, and all the others you can get the citadels. So this is the main lesson from the cruisers in Legendary Tier. If you want to perfectionize your gameplay against cruisers, and you have to be good, if you want to be a good destroyer player, you have to know where and how to fight the ships which are meant to hunt you. So you have to take the fight back to them, and you have to know their weak spots. So Napoli and Alaska, you have to get with Torps or HE, and all the others you can take AP broadside and really take them off the plate. But you can see here I'm trying very point blank, below 1 kilometer, where the citadel is, and you don't get a citadel here. So the caliber is too small, it doesn't pen, and yeah. It doesn't pen the citadel. It pens the ship, but it doesn't pen the citadel. So this is the takeaway, and for me this was an interesting learning. Part of that I was already aware, but I wasn't aware to the very detail of each ship. And I think this helped me a lot to improve my play. If I face some of these cruisers in the future, I will not waste time against Napoli and Alaska using AP, but I will take my reload booster out for all the other ships and really citadel them and say goodbye to them. And at the same time, of course, torpedoes always work. But as you can see here, Napoli, no way to get a citadel. So this is the learning here, and we're moving on from cruisers to destroyers and later on to battleships, where we also gather some new knowledge. So that's it for the cruiser part of target practicing and AP penetration. Now we are facing the destroyers. Destroyers in Legendary Tier, we have the Shimakaze, we have the Daring, we have the Khabarovsk, we have the Kleber, and yeah, they all act different. The Shimakaze, you can see I take a look at the damage counter. I take 3 shots with AP, and you can see how much or how few damage I rack up here against the Shimakaze, so which is per salvo, which is 1,000 or 2,000 per salvo. Which is not really impressive, and the drawback of AP is it doesn't damage modules. So you cannot damage the engine, you cannot damage the torpedo launcher, you cannot ignite fires. And now we're using HE against the Shimakaze, and you notice the difference. 3 salvos of AP got me one bar in total, and 3 salvos of HE sinks the Shimakaze. So learning here is forget about AP against the Shimakaze, and the learning from the whole session will be forget about AP against destroyers, besides the Khabarovsk in some situations. But in all other situations, you're far better off with HE against destroyers, because you have the opportunity to burn them down, to damage the modules and so on. And with AP you only do damage, and yeah, you don't do very consistent damage. You have to be very lucky, and you can see here I'm going in a point blank situation, which usually happens if you come around an island and you pass the other DD, you probably released your torpedoes and then you open fire. You see how little damage the AP does here to a full broadside ship. So whenever you broadside, forget about this. And you want to switch to HE. Again, you will see in a second the difference. That was 3 salvos of AP, and now we're doing the same stuff with HE. And you see again one bar with 3 salvos AP, and now we're going, you even see some shots going into the wreck. That's why I'm moving forward. So that was only half salvo HE, and now we're doing a full salvo, and you see bang, 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 a full bar with 1 salvo of 8 guns, and the last salvo will kill the ship. So again, the learning is HE is the way to go no matter what, and if you nose in anyway, HE is the way to go. So the only option is to use AP against destroyer in a broadside situation, but for all of these destroyers, HE is much better in a broadside situation than AP. Besides the Khabarovsk in a certain distance, but the window of opportunity against the Khabarovsk is so small that as a rule of thumb, I would suggest to you to not use AP at all in a destroyer on this tier here, because you rack up much more damage with HE than AP. And also you can see you get the fires, you damage the module, we got the top launcher, we ignite the fire, we cripple the movement, blah, blah, blah. So this is really useful, and that is the reason why I only use HE most of the time. And here we see the Khabarovsk, so we get out a shot of HE on the distance, and you see we're doing pretty decent damage. We got a torpedo launcher, and now we want to see what AP does on the distance. And yeah, I would say, okay, this is what you have to combine the salvo, but the difference is almost the same than HE, but we didn't damage any modules here. So again, if you do the same damage, it's better to use HE because you damage the modules, you ignite the fire and so on. Let's close in and see if that makes a difference against the Khabarovsk with the clay bearer. And you will see there is not much difference going with AP against the broadside. We wait for the turrets to turn. And then we are below 3 kilometers. We learned from the cruisers this is the perfect citadel distance, so the perfect penetration distance. And let's see what we do here. You can see we didn't do much more damage than we did on 5 kilometer distance. And again, so this is pretty steady, low to medium damage, no matter where we hit the ship. So for destroyer, it doesn't matter. You do not do much damage like with citadels and cruisers. Let's do HE. And okay, here the HE went to the water. We didn't do any damage. Then we do some medium damage. And so HE is a little bit of luck how you get the bullets to hit. Sometimes AP is a little bit better. Sometimes HE against the Khabarovsk is a little bit better. It's not really consistent. You have to be lucky. Close broadside, AP is a little bit better than HE. But again, HE, if you're angled, if you're nose in, if you're 45 degrees angles, HE is always better than AP. And that's why I said earlier, as a rule of thumb, here you see we got the torpedo launcher, we got a fire and so on. So the advantage of HE over AP is just so much bigger that I would suggest to only use HE in Legendary tier. Because it does so much damage and has so many advantages against destroyers. But again, against cruisers, I highly encourage you, as you saw, to use AP below 3 kilometers at all, below 4 kilometers, depending on the enemy cruiser you're running up against. Final ship is the Gearing. We want to test out if there's a difference, AP and HE. And watch at the damage counter and you can see what happens. So we got 3K with an AP salvo here, or 3.5K, which is pretty decent. Another 3K salvo. So yeah, you get some consistent 3K against the Gearing broadside. Here it was only 2K, so usually it's between 2 and 3K. And now we do HE and see what's the difference. And we get 7K with HE, with this salvo. And then, okay, we sunk the ship, that's why we couldn't do much more, but we got another 3K with HE. So again, this underlines what I said before. Use HE against destroyers. AP isn't worth it. Use AP against cruisers if you're below 3 kilometer. Depending on the situation, if you're below 5 kilometer, you can use AP against cruisers. Now let's talk about battleships and carriers. What is the situation here? So of course you cannot get citadels with the small caliber against battleships, but we want to see what are the spots and the ammunition to get the most damage with your guns. And as you can see, if you're angled on the distance and you fire to the top of the ship, you get like 3K something damage with this ship, 2 to 3K. It doesn't matter how much you're angled or not. This is pretty consistent. If you shoot the ship, you get these somewhat 3K damage, but you don't damage anything. So on this distance and angles, I would rather take HE and rely on the fires than using AP. AP is usable in this situation and distance if you have a ship and you have to assure the kill and you need like 10K damage. It takes 3 AP salvos and he's gone. I wouldn't bet for the fire because you don't do much damage, but you have to wait for the fire to burn down. And so these situations could be good to take AP. Now we are very close range and our back guns fire to the front of the ship, of the Yamato, and our center guns fire to the second turret. And you can look at the damage counter. You can see I'm aiming very low, so this was too low. Now I'm aiming a little higher, and you can see, watch the damage counter. You can see in a few salvos how quickly the damage counter racks up. So there's no way to get a citadel here. This is what I was trying. And now we are aiming higher to see where are the damage spots. You saw 4K damage in this spot here, and we're going for different spots. We do 5K here. And the more we go forward now, you can see that the back guns will fire the bow of the ship, and we're really racking up damage because what we will see at a later ship is with battleships, the best point to shoot at and racking up damage very quickly with AP is not the center top of the ship, it's the aft of a ship. So the ship is divided in 3 parts. You have the bow, which is about the first 25% of the ship I'm shooting now at. Then we have the middle 50%, and then we have the aft 25%. And the biggest damage we get when we fire to the bow and the center, like we do here. So 4 of the bullets go into the first turret, and the rest was shooting more to the bow. That's why we're racking up so much damage in so short time. But I will show you with the next battleship, shooting at the back of the ship gets you a lot more consistent high damage. So here we were shooting the armor belt, so no penetration, very low. You have to aim a little bit higher. There's no way. I was trying point blank to get a citadel, but this is really not possible. And then we're shooting the bow again, which is giving consistent damage, like 4 or 5K. And you see the bow going darker, which means there's some damage saturation. So damage in battleships works like, or in all the ships works like, they have an HP pool per section of the ship. And the darker it gets, the less HP are in this section, and the less you can farm. So the top part of the ship is almost depleted, but you still get a certain amount of damage if you shoot that part. So there is a saturation, but for battleships, it's always possible to collect some damage. But again, the best part to shoot at is the aft, and I will now show you why. So now we have a broadside Montana, and we're shooting the center. Watch the damage counter, it goes up 2,000–3,000. If we shoot the bow, it goes up 3,000 to 5,000 depending on the salvo. And if we shoot the back, you see the center is getting 3K. If we shoot the back, we get 7–8K per salvo. So really the back is the best part to shoot at if you want consistent and high damage with AP. If you shoot at a battleship in Legendary, shoot at the back. Don't shoot the center, don't shoot the top, shoot the back. This is where you get the numbers. You see worst I get 3–4K. Front I get the best is 3 to 5. But in the aft we get the most consistent damage. Again, 4,500. We're moving a little closer now. This was a weaker one with 3,000. And here we want to be a little bit more broadside to optimize, so we get 5,000. And you see how it gets darker, so the pool depletes. And you see the center doesn't count much. I have to aim higher to get more points, but still then I get like 3,000 to 4,000. And in the back you see 47. And now we're 50. Despite the fact that the aft of the ship is almost depleted, we're still doing 3,000 to 4,000 per salvo in the back of the ship. And we're repeating here at the fresh back. We're doing 5,000 the first salvo. We're doing 8,000 the next salvo. So you can see the highest number come up if you shoot at the back and the pool depletes, but you get the highest number for a couple of shots, and then you still get 4,000 or 5,000, which is still better than shooting at the center of the ship. And this is my takeaway from this. You can see 87, and now we get 89. So the center isn't nearly as consistent racking up AP damage as the aft of the battleships. So whenever you need to use to bring down a ship, you can either do it with HE or you use AP at the back. That will really take down the ship, especially if the ship is left over with 20–30K. Then you really quickly, with 3–4 salvos, can bring down the ship. And I bet everything that the captain will be very surprised. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave your comments, feedback, and I hope you enjoyed it. Recommend my channel and have a good time. Thank you out there. Bye-bye.